I caught my future mother-in-law sharing a laugh with her friends, boasting about how she'd landed a simp son-in-law and was set for life. It was a stark moment of realization for her that she wouldn't be able to leech off me. I'm a 32-year-old man preparing to marry my fiancée, Deborah, who is 31. We've been together for 2 years, and I proposed to her last month. I'm completely enamored with her and eagerly anticipate our future together. Our backgrounds are starkly different. I grew up in a working-class family as the middle child of 3, always navigating life paycheck to paycheck. In contrast, Deborah had a comfortable upbringing, thanks to her father's success as a businessman, surrounded by wealthy peers who hosted lavish parties. I worked tirelessly to put myself through college and landed a job at a prestigious company, earning my parents' pride for achieving independence without their financial support. When Deborah and I first met at a mutual friend's party, we felt an immediate connection despite our differences. We began dating seriously, taking the time to understand each other, and soon fell deeply in love. Deborah invited me to a family dinner to introduce me to her parents. Meeting her father, John, a successful businessman, was encouraging. He appreciated my hard work. However, her mother, Maggie, didn't seem impressed. It was clear she held my humble beginnings against me, believing her only child deserved someone more aligned with her expectations. Maggie's disapproval was palpable. She often interrupted me during conversations, her disapproving glances making our interactions uncomfortable. In contrast, my parents welcomed Deborah with open arms, teasing her playfully while making her feel at home. Their warmth was a stark contrast to the chilly reception I received from Maggie. As time went on, I tried to bridge the gap with Maggie, hoping to win her over. I understood her struggle to reconcile our different backgrounds, but our interactions remained strained. Despite this, Deborah and I focused on nurturing our relationship, determined to build a life together. Even amid familial tensions, we held on to the hope that, over time, Maggie might come to accept me. Tragically, a year ago, John passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack. Along with his wealth, he left behind debts, forcing Maggie to sell her house and car to settle obligations. With nowhere to turn, she moved in with us, and though I didn't mind, wanting to support her in her time of grief, she constantly found reasons to complain about our home. Deborah and I shared household responsibilities equally, cooking, cleaning, and managing our busy lives together. My parents had instilled in me the value of independence, so I embraced my share of chores. However, Maggie openly disapproved of my involvement, making comments like, "A man doesn't belong in the kitchen," or "Men shouldn't do housework." While I tried to brush off her remarks, they grew increasingly hurtful over time. I discussed her behavior with Deborah, who agreed that her mother's attitude was hostile and challenging. Now, to the incident that changed everything. After receiving a promotion at work, I wanted to celebrate this milestone with family and friends, so we decided to host a grand event. Maggie took it upon herself to invite some of her wealthy friends whom she hadn't seen since John's passing. I entrusted Deborah with the planning, knowing she would do a fantastic job. The day of the celebration arrived, and our home looked stunning. As guests began to arrive, Maggie appeared to enjoy reconnecting with her old friends while Deborah and I mingled with our relatives. However, as the night wore on, I noticed Maggie's behavior took a troubling turn. After indulging in a bit too much wine, her comments grew inappropriate, and she began boasting about how expensive everything was, making our guests visibly uncomfortable. In the midst of hosting, I dashed to a nearby liquor store when we ran out of wine. Upon returning, I found Deborah outside on the lawn, chatting with our relatives. I served them drinks before heading back inside to check on the other guests. That's when I overheard my mother-in-law's loud laughter as she chatted with her friends. I was about to enter the room when I caught a snippet of her conversation. She was gloating about my recent job promotion, mentioning how she had been living in our home rent-free for months. With a mocking tone, she laughed, claiming she had landed a simp son-in-law who was covering her expenses while she enjoyed her stay. Her words stung deeply, and I felt blindsided by her blatant disregard for my efforts and generosity. Then, she continued, saying she was set for life now that Deborah was marrying me in a few months. The emotional turmoil was overwhelming. It was disheartening to hear such derogatory remarks from someone I considered family, especially after I had tried my best to support her during a tough time. Standing there, grappling with a mix of anger, disappointment, and betrayal, I debated whether to confront her or wait for a more appropriate moment. Maggie then told her friends that, because I came from a low-income background, I would always be a hard worker for her and that she had nothing to worry about. At that moment, I could no longer tolerate her words. Fueled by a mix of hurt and indignation, I made the decision to confront her right then and there, wine bottle in hand. As I walked into the room, an awkward silence enveloped the group. The laughter faded from Maggie's lips, replaced by a mixture of surprise and concern. It was clear she was worried I had overheard her conversation. I poured wine for everyone, placed the bottle down, and turned my attention to Maggie. Maggie, I couldn't help but overhear your conversation with your friends. I stood there for a good 5 minutes listening to you talk about how you've used my perceived naivety to your advantage. I want to be clear, I welcomed you into my home with open arms, wanting to support you during a difficult time, especially after losing your husband. However, making hurtful comments like this in front of our family and friends and laughing at my expense is unacceptable. A heavy silence fell over the room, the tension palpable. I could see the shock on Maggie's face, and her friends shifted uncomfortably. Just then, my fiancée, Deborah, walked in, confusion written all over her face as she sensed something was off. With her presence, I explained to her what her mother had been saying about me. Deborah's eyes widened in disbelief, and Maggie's expression shifted from shock to embarrassment. I felt a deep hurt from the way Maggie had spoken about me, and I knew I couldn't forgive her. Please leave my house, Maggie, I said firmly. Her eyes widened as she began to protest frantically, realizing she had nowhere else to go. Deborah remained silent, clearly aware of the humiliation I felt because of her mother's actions. I stood my ground, asserting that I could no longer trust my soon-to-be mother-in-law to live with us. I suggested she reach out to one of her wealthy friends at the party, who had just moments ago been laughing at my expense. Maggie glanced around the room, desperation in her eyes as her friends avoided making eye contact with her. I couldn't help but smirk. I had reached my breaking point and was no longer willing to be used. In that tense moment, Deborah, clearly taken aback by the unfolding drama, finally found her voice. With a mixture of disappointment and determination, she addressed her mother. Mom, you've put us in an incredibly uncomfortable position with your behavior today. We've always tried to support you, but treating my fiancé this way is unacceptable. Caught between her daughter's disapproval and her own shame, Maggie began to grasp the gravity of the situation. She attempted to apologize, but I was no longer willing to be manipulated. Still seething with anger and disappointment, I turned and walked out of the room. The party eventually ended, and it seemed Maggie had left to stay with relatives. Since that night, I've been inundated with messages from various guests. Most have supported my decision to stand up for myself, but some family members from Deborah's side claim I humiliated her mother. My parents, who witnessed the incident, stood firmly by my side. The fallout has created a divide between our families, and the mixed opinions are only heightening the tension. I felt compelled to post here for an unbiased perspective. Am I the **hole for confronting my soon-to-be mother-in-law in front of everyone after I caught her mocking me and letting her know she wouldn't be able to leech off me? Update 1. Thanks to everyone for your feedback on my previous post. Many suggested that this incident should serve as a wake-up call about the family I'm marrying into. Several commenters recommended I consider a prenup with my fiancé, which I hadn't thought about before, but I'm now seriously considering. After the party, Deborah and I had a long discussion about everything. While she's completely on my side, it's hard to deny that my trust has been shaken. It's not her fault, but I worry about how easily her family could manipulate me in the future. Many comments pointed out that her mother's subtle, mean remarks over the past months constitute emotional abuse, and I'm starting to see it that way too. I don't want her in my life anymore. 2 days after Maggie left, she called my fiancée, Deborah, but she chose not to answer. Instead, Maggie sent me an angry text that read, "Adam, are you happy now that you've separated me from my daughter? I've already lost my husband, and now I'm losing my daughter because of you. Yes, I used you, but isn't that what a son-in-law should do, pay for his future mother-in-law's expenses? You could have bought me a new place when I lost my house, but instead, you forced me to live with you. You have more than enough to take care of my daughter, so it wouldn't hurt you to take care of me too." Her message left me seething with anger. It was clear she felt no remorse for her derogatory remarks in front of her friends. I shared the message with Deborah, who quickly assured me she would address the situation. She advised me to block her mother's number, which I did. I felt emotionally drained from this ongoing drama. Maggie's relentless unkindness towards me and her unreasonable financial expectations were really taking a toll. Update 2. Here's the update everyone has been waiting for. In the days that followed, Deborah continued to manage her mother's attempts to contact us. She firmly explained to Maggie that the situation had become untenable and that she had crossed a line. Deborah offered to help her mother find suitable accommodations but emphasized that our living arrangement had reached its limit. Maggie's responses swung from anger to pleading, continually accusing me of tearing her family apart and inflicting more pain during an already difficult time. Thankfully, I had blocked her, so she had no way to reach me. As our wedding day approached, I confided my fears and thoughts to Deborah, and to my surprise, she took it quite well. She reassured me that my concerns were valid and expressed her willingness to sign a prenup to help alleviate my anxiety. I was taken aback by her understanding, feeling guilty for harboring any negative thoughts about her because of her mother's actions. After that conversation, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, and we began to regain a sense of normalcy. Then, just a few days later, Maggie showed up at our doorstep without warning. I was home alone when I heard the doorbell ring. When I opened the door, there she was, ready to confront me. Her accusations and anger spilled out as I let her inside and invited her to sit. Maggie claimed that I had ruined her relationship with her daughter, placing all the blame squarely on my shoulders. Her words dripped with frustration and resentment. "You think you can just control everything, don't you?" she exclaimed. "You've taken my daughter away from me, and now you're trying to push me out of her life. This is my family too, and you can't dictate what happens here." As the argument escalated, her accusations became more personal and cutting. She insisted that I was isolating her from Deborah and argued that she deserved to be living with her daughter. I took a deep breath, trying to remain composed in the face of her outburst. "Maggie, this isn't about pushing you away, it's about preserving the peace and well-being of our family. Your actions and words have made it incredibly challenging to maintain a healthy environment here. I'm not trying to isolate you, I'm trying to set boundaries." I continued, "Deborah and I deserve to have a loving, supportive, and peaceful home. It's not about control, it's about ensuring that our relationship is respected and protected." Thankfully, at that moment, Deborah returned from the grocery store, and I breathed a sigh of relief knowing she could handle her mother better. She was visibly shocked to find Maggie standing in our house and hurried to my side, concern evident in her eyes. I nodded, morbidly relieved to have her presence beside me. Maggie, now directing her attention toward Deborah, accused me of trying to control her life. She insisted that she wouldn't let me kick her out and declared her intention to live here, accusing me of trying to divide the family apart since her husband had passed away. She continued her tirade. Deborah's anger flared as she explained to her mother that after what she had said about me, she couldn't expect me to forget it. She reminded Maggie that she had never even apologized for the harsh words spoken in front of the guests at a party I had hosted. "Mom, you're not entitled to live here just because I'm marrying Adam," Deborah reiterated, her voice steady but firm. Maggie's displeasure at her daughter's support for me only escalated her anger. The room was charged with emotions, and I didn't want this to escalate further, so I asked Maggie to leave immediately, warning her that I would call the police if she didn't. Her expression displayed a mix of frustration and resignation. She clearly wanted to argue further, but thankfully, she decided to leave. After this incident, I planned to take some space from Deborah and her family. I love her deeply, but I didn't want to be stuck in a toxic environment forever. I realized I needed to take time to rethink our future. Update 3. It's been 4 months since my last update, and I know it's been a while, but here I am. I'm thrilled to share that Deborah and I are now happily married. Our wedding day went off without a hitch, and it was a beautiful celebration of our love and commitment. We were surrounded by our closest family and friends, and the day was filled with joy and cherished memories. I had mentioned before that I was unsure about marrying her, but after some time apart, I realized that Deborah was nothing like her mother. As we discussed before our marriage, Deborah did sign a prenuptial agreement, which gave us both peace of mind. This decision helped ensure that our relationship was built on trust, respect, and a mutual understanding of our responsibilities. One notable absence on our special day was Maggie. We did invite her, as I didn't want Deborah to exclude her only living parent from witnessing our wedding, but Maggie chose not to attend. Her lingering anger and resentment toward me from our earlier conflicts had led to her leaving our home permanently. I couldn't help but feel sad for Deborah, who had to navigate the difficult decision of having her mother absent on such an important occasion. Nonetheless, our wedding was filled with love and happiness. We were grateful for the support of our loved ones, who celebrated the beginning of our journey as a married couple. In the days following our wedding, Deborah and I settled into married life, cherishing our moments together and planning for our future. We're excited about the possibilities that lie ahead, knowing that our love will guide us through any challenges we might face. Update 4. Married life has been going great so far. Deborah and I have been relishing every moment together as a couple. We find joy in the little things, from lazy Sunday mornings with breakfast in bed to cozy evenings spent reading together. Our love continues to grow, and we've become even more in sync. We've embraced the various responsibilities that come with marriage quite smoothly. Recently, I took a significant step in my journey toward personal growth and family healing. Thanks to everyone's advice, I decided to start therapy, and it has been a transformative experience. Therapy has provided me with the tools to better understand and express myself, as well as navigate the dynamics within our family. It has allowed me to address the emotional wounds and challenges I faced, especially regarding my relationship with my mother-in-law. With my therapist's guidance, I've learned to communicate more effectively with Deborah and work on building a stronger, more communicative relationship. Once I felt ready, we tried to reach out to Maggie, hoping to mend the rift that had developed between us. While it wasn't easy for me to initiate contact, I knew how much Deborah loved her mother, and I didn't want her to live her life without being in contact with her only remaining parent. We decided to invite Maggie over for dinner to talk things through properly. She had been staying at various relatives' places since the incident, and when Deborah reached out with the invitation, Maggie seemed surprised yet intrigued. When she arrived at our home, we cautiously began with small talk to catch up on each other's lives. Deborah broke the ice, expressing her desire to see a healthier relationship between me and Maggie. She shared how much she loved both of us and wanted to see us get along. Hearing this, Maggie slowly admitted that her actions had been fueled by loss and uncertainty after her husband's passing and that she had let those emotions cloud her judgment. She apologized to me for her behavior and expressed that she hadn't initially understood how much she had hurt me. I could see she seemed genuinely sorry. Our conversation continued, addressing the hurt feelings on both sides and discussing steps we could take to mend the rift. It was an emotional and honest discussion marked by tears and heartfelt apologies, with Deborah acting as a bridge between us. By the end of the evening, amidst a wonderful dinner, there was a sense of relief and optimism in the room. While the wounds of the past hadn't completely healed, the foundation for reconciliation had been laid. It was a promising start on the journey toward rebuilding the bonds that had been strained for so long. Since that evening, we've continued to see Maggie at family events, and the awkwardness has dissipated. Our relationship has gradually improved, though I'll never feel comfortable enough to have her live with us again. I remain patient and understanding, knowing that healing will take time,